Hello, my name is Marcus and welcome to what hopefully is a pretty quick review of Reforest, Plants of the Pacific Northwest Coast. A very long name and a very specific name, and to be honest, I love it. It reminds me quite a lot about Forest Shuffle, except there's not as many animals in here. It is the plants of the Pacific Northwest Coast. That is Pacific Northwest Coast. That is very specific. It's not just the Pacific Coast, and it's not the Northwest. Very specific, which is very interesting. But perhaps whoever has designed this one knows quite a lot about that area. Anyways, let's quickly get it to the table, see how it's set up and played. Alright, let's look at the game. I've already unpacked it just because I can. So, first of all, you have all of these plant cards here. Whole bunch with this green background. Those are, of course, shuffled up, and then an amount is used depending on player count. I'm just gonna put the stack down. It's not super important for the overview, but you remove an amount based on how many players you are. And then each player gets 5 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as a starting hand. I'm just gonna draw one, again, it's for the overview, and then 3 cards will be set up like so. Yes, then you have these visitor cards, they're called. These animal backgrounds here, which you shuffle up, and then 3 of them are placed somewhere else, somewhere sort of to the side. And these around, these have a goal per the end of the round. Let me just show you here. This one dictates that you must have the most of this symbol, and you get this 5 extra points. They also get an amount of cards underneath them, again depending on player count. I think for a 4-player game it's like 12. But you'll be able to put an amount of cards. I'm just gonna underneath them here. Again, you should count this up, but because I want to just move on, I'm gonna do it in the fast way here. Alright, and now you're basically ready to start. And you do 2 things on your turn. You either gather or you play a card. And gathering is drawing 2 cards in any combination. So maybe I think this Devil's Club is very, very interesting, so I'm gonna grab that one. And then there's nothing else interesting, so I'm gonna grab something from the top of the deck and place a new one here, of course. And the important thing here is it's only placed a new one when you're done. The other thing I of course can is play a card. Now a card costs this, and that you will pay in discarded cards. Let me just see. Reaction when you play a Mountain Heather. Passive. Here's one when played. Alright. So this is an ability that says when played. So I might play this one. It can be anywhere. That's also important positioning. You are going to build like a pyramid. 3 at the bottom, 2 and 1 at the top. And this one dictates sort of where in the pyramid you can be. This one can be anywhere. This one can only be on the bottom 2 layers. And this one can only be on the top 2 layers. So that's important to remember as well. When played, discard 2 adjacent stored energy if you do draw a visitor card. Okay, so there's no adjacent stored energy, so maybe it's not the coolest thing to do that. What that is, I will get to in a second. But now that I've done that, I'm going to play a card out, which will be just this one. It has a reaction one, which dictates whenever something happens, you do something. When this one is whenever you play a Mountain Heather, you store 3 cards from the discard pile under this stack. So, you know, again, it's cool when you play it. But right now I just pay it to pay this one's cost. Alright, now let's say I might want to play this one here. Now this one costs 2, can only be in the bottom. I could play it on top of this one. Now this one has the sun symbol, so it would drown down, become stored energy. This is stored energy now. And this one, and because that other one had a cost of 1, this one now costs 1 less. So I might throw this one out to play it. And sort of the same thing sort of with this one. This one costs 2 and this one costs 2, so I could play it on top of here for free. Now the rule for playing on top is they have to be larger. So this one is 0.2 meters, this one's 2 meters. It can fit on top. Now this one is 0.45 meters, so it cannot fit on top of this one, for example. But it does give me a good reason to talk about something different. This one has a full sun symbol here, which means it becomes stored energy when played on top. This one, however, has this sun symbol here. So when you put on top of it, all the symbols down here all still count. It's not stored energy, it sits like this. Yeah, and it also has, so this one has another one after gathering event ability. This one has just a passive ability. So all plants of this type that are growing in adjacent spaces, they cost 1 less. And adjacent spaces is to the side or sort of on top of it, right? You would put one up here, it would cost 1 less. And then there's also some that are scoring related at the end of the game. And that's basically what you do in a turn. Of course, then you check. Now I'm lucky enough to have 2 of those yellow symbols, so I might, get this one at the end of the round. I get that one. Each round ends, by the way, when the pile runs out, and then the cards beneath the visitor, alongside the cards that were discarded, are shuffled up and placed as the new draw pile. When that runs out, next round. When that runs out, last round. And when that runs out, end of the game. You score visitor points, you score points on the trees, these points here, any end game scorers like this one, and each stored energy is 1 point. And nothing for cards in your hand. And whoever has the most amount of points wins. It is a very simple game in gameplay. The complexity comes with all the card combinations that there are. Alright, that is the setup and gameplay of it. One thing I will say, there is a module in here, variable thing. I haven't played with it yet, it's just a base game for this one, because I think the base game contains enough. I mean, it is just a box of cards, so there's many things to go through already. So as I said, it sort of reminds me of Forest Shuffle. You have to sign the cards, you play the card, you play them by discarding cards. And then they all score by interacting with one another. So it reminds sort of that, with still being specifically itself, like the build-up. I guess that's supposed to be, I call it a pyramid because that's what you are sort of building, but it's of course meant to be sort of like the mountainside. Where on the mountain would it grow? Is it very low towards the coast, or very high up in the green areas, whatever. And I think it works beautifully. I love this thing with the undergrowth thing, where either it can't survive in the shadow, some plants can't do that, or it can survive in the shadows, which again, some plants obviously can. It's a very lovely, realistic aspect that really draws in the theme of it for these plants of the Pacific Northwest. I love saying that. And believe me, I'm gonna have to put the entire title in my YouTube title. Can I even do that? Is that too long? The setup of this one is, of course, simple. The reason I didn't do it fully is because it involves counting. How many players are you? The thing I would have to remember is exactly how many plant cards are there, because then it's easier to say, okay, so if there's 100 and I need to keep 90, then I need to remove 10. That's for 4 players. You have 90 cards, and then you have 12 under each of those animals, visitors. Actually, I can't remember right now sitting here whether the last one gets it or not. So that's on me if that's incorrect. I literally can't remember right now, but I will read the rules afterwards and see if I made a mistake there. But that setup is of course simple enough, just using this deck of cards. And the gameplay is lovely and simple. Either you play a card or you gather some cards. And again, in the gathering aspect, I do like that it doesn't refill until after your turn. You can just draw one and see what arrives. That of course is not to say that that's a bad thing in something like Ticket to Ride, because it's also cool in Ticket to Ride to take that risk of drawing something, let me see what happens, comes at my way. And sometimes you sit there and going, oh, that's a locomotive, great. But this one doesn't do that, and that's very interesting. You have these 3, that's all you know about for this round if you want to gather. And of course you have all the cards that do something when you gather. It is sort of building an engine in terms of your pyramid, where you have to think about covering stuff, because even the ones that can survive don't survive with the ability. The ability gets covered. So that's something you have to sit there and think about. Like, you have a very good cover thing, but you when gathering ability. So when do I want to cover that? If I even want to cover it, that's definitely a dilemma. I've sit there with a card that I really want to play, but I'm gonna need to cover something. What the hell do I cover with this one? And I think putting such a simple gameplay. And again, I'm going to do a comparison to Forest Shuffle because it's the same mechanic in Forest Shuffle. Either draw 2 cards or play a card. Either draw 2 cards, play a card, right? It's sort of the same mechanic there, except that, with significant changes. For example, discard cards, you put them on the grid. The end game is very different. So it's not to say that they're the same game. They are not, but there is a similarity to it. And to just take 2 incredibly simple actions, but then through the complications of the abilities on each card and the points values and all of that, to make it such an amazing game. I love that kind of stuff, man. And I think I've talked about the gameplay. I mean, the gathering action is... So let me just do a short conclusion here, because I haven't talked long enough. The gathering action is amazing, cool to not refill it in, and playing a card is such a deep choice. Amazing. Amazing. Of course, the store, you can use stored energy to pay for a card. I don't think I said that. And the reduction, of course, to the cards. Everything about that is really, really cool. I really like that. I really do. Alright, so what's up next? Let's talk about components. I mean, there's only one component in here, cards. So are the cards nice quality? Absolutely they are. Feel really good in hand. When I shuffle them, I don't feel like they're tearing apart, which sometimes with cheap cards you can feel like they're just smoldering in your hands. No feel of that here. It's amazing even to shuffle up. And the artwork is really, really great. It really brings out the plants in an amazing way. But you can still see that it's artwork and not a picture. It's sort of captured here in the front cover. Really, really cool looking. And more of the scientific art method for plants and trees that I would expect to see this in like a nature book. This is the... I'm just gonna draw a card because I have so little... This is the Ocean Spray. Hibiscus discolor. Like I would imagine seeing this artwork in like a book where I was reading about the Pacific Northwest coast. And I think that's amazing for a game like this to have that great artwork. Really cool looking artwork and a great feeling on the cards. Really good quality cards. Theming, as I said, the theming is very much there, this thing of growing over the other plants, and all, even like the plants can give nutrients to other plants. That is something that happens, plants eat other plants in real life. So it really much does everything it can for this game to feel very, very thematic. When you play through it, and all the choices, all the things they do, of course all the abilities on each of the cards is to make it a good game. That makes sense, but all the way of paying for the card, it really much makes sense and really draws you into the theme of this, which is not necessarily the plants of the Pacific Northwest coast, but it is plants in general, the nature life, right? Really draws you into the theme. It's such a simple mechanic. It really draws in the theme. Amazingly well done from Firestarter Toys here for that, to bring the theme out here. So, does it lie to you? And it says right here, 1 to 4 players, 30 to 60 minutes, ages 14 and up. So it's one that puts the age high, and I always love when they do that. It acknowledges the fact that these complicated ways of thinking needs you to be a little bit more developed in your brain. Because you kind of do, right? There's a lot to think about. You shouldn't just cover something without having thought it through. So the 1 to 4 players, I don't play at 1 player, as always. But 2 to 4, sorry. I really think it's more of a 4-player game, I think. But then again, this is where I complain about it. I feel like it passes through too quickly, right? Sure, you sit there playing a long time, but you don't do a lot, and when you finally get to do something, you don't get to do enough. Especially that first round and the points on that one, that's just being lucky. Like the yellow markings is, if I was lucky, I could get that bumblebee in the setup that I did. And that's no matter if it's 2, 3 or 4 player. This problem goes through all of them. It goes at 2 players, there's not enough cards, the rounds go by too quickly. At 4 players, there's enough cards, but you don't get access to them because there's 3 other players that get access to them. And at 3 players, it still feels like it goes quite quickly, but you don't do a lot. It feels slowly getting to your turn, and when it gets to your turn, it's like, oh, it's the end of the round all of a sudden. So it feels like it's going by too quickly or too slowly, and I think it's interesting. Like you would think, okay, 2 players too quick, 4 players too slow, 3 perfect. But even at 3, it's such a weird feeling. And this is where I'm gonna speak negatively about it, because I absolutely feel when I've played it that I don't get to do enough. It's not my turn enough before the game or before the round ends, and I don't get to do enough. If I need to draw up cards 2 turns in a row, I'm behind now because I need to pay for my cards or something. So building the engine is very difficult and very luck dependent. I would probably prefer it at 4, if I have to give a number, because there's more cards in play. There's a higher likelihood that you get what you sort of need, and it's not like you need one specific card every turn. There's many cards that can fill out the niche that you would like, so it's not impossible. So therefore I would prefer it at 4 at a max player count. 30 to 60 minutes, I think it's fairly accurate. It's one of those that's very accurate. I think at 2 players it can even go down as 20 minutes, but yeah, about an hour I would say at 4, and 3 depends on how good you are at the game. But it can take about an hour. I would say that's fairly accurate. But yeah, the negativity around the player count, that's really the only negativity that I have. So what's my final score for it? Well, that player count aspect is going to drag it down quite a bit. I really do love the gameplay of it and the way you play out the cards, but I can't see, like, First Shuffle is amazing and I don't have that player count issue with First Shuffle. So because of that, because of the direct comparison that there is, Reforest is dragged a little down a little bit. First Shuffle a 10 out of 10 for me. Reforest, while still containing that great gameplay and changing it up with the variability, the player count issue just drags it down to an 8 for me. And 8 is still a great point, but when the gameplay has an existing 10 out of 10 example almost, it's annoying that the player count issues or that kind of timing issue just drags it down to that 8 out of 10. But 8 out of 10 is still a great game, and it is a very small game, which I love because it fits in many places, and it would be difficult for me to not find a place for it, so I might as well keep it. I know, especially with the expansion that is on Kickstarter currently, or recently finished on Kickstarter. That's coming out soon. I might be getting a hold of it. I'm not 100% sure on that just yet, but definitely interested in it. But yeah, that's another review done. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!